Wow, I can't believe I have five over. I can't believe I'm not editing this because it's YouTube and I don't know how to do all that. And I'm going to be very careful with what I say and my eyes, I don't know what I'm looking at. Um I don't like filming videos like this. I like shorts, but I'm going to try to do this. I can't believe I have over 500 subscribers as of right now on YouTube. 500, 300, I'm sorry. But I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. If you're here, you're interested, you want to know. I'm not going to get into super detail, but basically, I'm 31. I've been married for over a decade. I have kids and I work from home, but I'm also a stay-at-home mom, so homeschool, I kind of do a little bit of everything. A couple years ago, I went through betrayal trauma with my husband, and it was awful. And I went through this betrayal trauma completely blindsided, never having experienced anything like this before. I'm a mom. I don't know what to do. I'm like, do I leave? Do I stay? Do I get a divorce? Do I, how do we do custody? How do we do living arrangements? Like, what are we going to do, right? Didn't know where to turn, etc. We get help, therapy, groups. We talk to people. We talk to friends, family. And I started sharing my journey online. Started this little platform of community of men and women, men that wanted help with corn addiction and women that wanted help with betrayal trauma. Okay. In my experience, betrayal trauma, specifically with hidden corn addiction. I have to be very careful. It was the most devastating, painful thing I had ever gone through in my life. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to be a mom. I wanted so badly to just be carefree Jordan again. I wanted to be happy. I just wanted to feel like living again. And I didn't feel like that. I felt like it had stolen everything from me. My happiness, my joy, my family, my motherhood journey. I mean, everything was stolen. I feel like chunks of time I lost because of the depression and just everything, Hold on. But over time, things got better. And so I want to use this account to share what helped me, what helped my husband. Because nobody talks about it, okay? And nobody talks about it because it is incredibly normalized. It is enabled, encouraged. It is glamorized. It is shown to children and teenagers and men and women as a normal, healthy thing that people do in the modern world. And it's something that you shouldn't be ashamed of. You shouldn't feel guilty of. It's not cheating. It's not this. It's not that. My opinion, of course, is that when you enter into a relationship, if you consider those things cheating, they're cheating, right? If, one person might consider going on a date with another woman cheating, maybe another person won't consider that cheating, whatever. Obviously, I'm someone who considers corn use cheating, and I was hurt by that. Another reason that this isn't talked about very much is because if a man says, I use corn and I want to stop and it's difficult to stop, they are laughed at. Other people and other men will look at them like they have something wrong with them. Like, what do you mean you have a problem? It's normal. What do you mean you can't stop? It's not an addiction. So it's kind of another thing where it's kind of taboo to talk about, and there's a lot of mystery around it. There's a lot of misinformation around it, where it's you have this thing that's corn. It floods your dopamine receptors. It hijacks your sexual arousal template. It creates these coping mechanisms that are unlike anything else you're going to use in your life. It's similar to other addictions. It's similar to a gambling addiction. It's similar to heroin. It has similarities to other addictions, but the difference is every other addiction like this, you need money to access. You need sometimes transportation. You have to go out of your way sometimes to access those things. Whereas with corn addiction, can be free and accessed 24/7, never ending. There's a never ending supply of it always out there. And so when you look at other drugs or types of addictions, when you escalate those and you progress with those, there's, usually you're losing money, you're losing time, you're losing health, you're visibly losing these things, and there's signs. With a corn addiction, there's not always. With a corn addiction, you can have this dependency, this coping mechanism that you've had for a decade or 15, 20 years, whatever, and you may not know it, and the people around you, your spouse, may not know it, because it can be very easy to hide and to cover up. And unfortunately, because of how our world is right now, because of how the internet is right now, most children first access corn, very damaging corn, between the ages of like 6 and 11 years old at their first experience. And then depending on their lifestyle, they may have a lot of access for years, or they may have sporadic access for years. It just depends. Regardless, it harms children. It hijacks, it ruins, a child's innocence. It ruins their childhood. It can ruin, so many parts of, their life that should be, they're growing up and they're having their innocence protected. And unfortunately, corn can really steal that away. And then they enter through their teenage years, and corn can be extremely destructive on the ways that these kids, boys and girls, are viewing themselves, viewing their peers, viewing other men, other women, other boys and girls in their class. It's just destructive all around. That's kind of what I say. I'm like, it destroys men, it destroys women, it destroys families and children. So with that being said, there are ways to recover. There are ways to get sober. There are ways to save your relationship after, this type of betrayal trauma. Those ways are not easy. They are not necessarily easy. They are not necessarily, how do I explain it? What I typically say to men and women is that unfortunately, most relationships won't survive it. And the reasons that it won't survive are because, first of all, for a woman to heal from betrayal trauma, it takes a long time, and it is difficult. And then for the man, not only does he have to recover from his corn dependency, but then he also has to help his wife recover as well and to heal from that pain. And so having to do both of those things simultaneously for years can be very difficult. Healing from a corn dependency, addiction, what have you, typically the way you look at it is like long-term recovery is like 5 years. And, the first 5 years have the highest chances of relapse. And so, those 5 years, you have to be very disciplined and determined. You have to be very intentional. I always recommend for men, in the first 90 days, cut out all social media, be very, very intentional with how you're spending your time. Go to Sexaholics Anonymous meetings, go to PAA meetings, do these meetings and, identify your triggers, right? Do all that stuff, do all that work. Maybe do a full disclosure with a therapist if that's something that you and your partner are needing or wanting. And then after that 90 days, just kind of evaluate where you're at. Hopefully that 90 days you've been relapse free. And after that 90 days, look at everything you've done every day for the last 90 days. And then see, okay, how do I want to continue this recovery? How do I want to continue this sobriety? Do I want to re-download any social media apps? Do I want to, have YouTube, but maybe not have Instagram? Do I, you just kind of have to look at it very intentionally. You have to be very careful with, what you are allowing yourself to be exposed to, because you don't want to experience triggers that are going to lead you back down that same path. And then the other thing is accountability apps. So the meetings and social media and therapy, and then getting accountability apps, which typically I recommend Ever Accountable or Covenant Eyes. Both of them are very good. But having an accountability app alone is not going to, recover you or get you sober. but it is something that helps to hopefully maintain a certain level of accountability. So anyway, yeah, it's been 2.5 years for me since my D-Day. It was September 17th, 2022. And the first 6 weeks were the worst. The first whole year it really was torture. It was awful. The second whole year was much better. Still I had pain. I had triggers. I had, self-doubt and self-hatred and sadness. And now we're about 2.5 years out, and things are much better, in a much, much more beautiful place, a much more lovely place, a much more safe and secure space. And if you are someone who has gone through this, or someone who you found corn and you don't know how to approach it or whatever, I just want to say that you are not crazy, you are not insecure, you are not, any of those things. You are someone who you are offering faithfulness, fidelity, loyalty, commitment. You are not asking too much by expecting that same level of loyalty that you are giving out.